The massive silver ship floated silently through the dark space between stars. Inside the vessel, Captain Vextai stood before a wall of glowing screens that showed star maps and planet locations. Her blue skin shimmered under the bright lights of the command bridge. She had 4 arms and large black eyes that could see far more colors than any human could imagine. "Captain, we have found something interesting," said Science Officer Ketham as he approached. His voice made a clicking sound when he spoke. "There is a small planet in this system. It has water and life forms." Captain Vextai turned all 4 of her arms toward the main viewing screen. A blue and green planet appeared, spinning slowly in the darkness. White clouds swirled around its surface like cotton candy. "What kind of life forms?" she asked. "The scans show many different creatures, Captain, but there is one species that seems to be the most advanced. They walk on 2 legs and build structures." "But Captain," Ketham paused and looked at his datapad. "They appear to be very primitive." Dr. Zelnoth, the ship's main scientist, stepped forward. Her long neck stretched up as she looked at the screen. "The creatures have no energy shields around their cities. No molecular food makers. No quantum communication systems. They still burn fossil fuels to move their vehicles around." Captain Vextai shook her head. In all her years exploring the galaxy, she had seen many species. Some were advanced like her own people. Others were just starting to discover fire. But this species seemed strange. "Show me these creatures," she commanded. The main screen changed to show images of humans walking in cities, driving cars, and working in fields. The aliens watched as humans used simple tools made of metal and wood. They saw humans cooking food over open flames and living in basic structures made of concrete and steel. "This is very odd," said Dr. Zelnoth. "Our computers show that this species has been around for thousands of years. But they still use such basic technology. Most species either advance quickly or die out completely." Ketham pulled up more data on his screen. "Captain, they do have some interesting things. They have flying machines and they can communicate across long distances. But compared to us, they might as well be using sticks and stones." Captain Vextai walked closer to the viewing screen. She watched as humans went about their daily lives far below. They seemed so small and weak. Her own people could survive in space without suits. They could create any tool they needed using their advanced technology. These humans looked like they would die if left alone in the wilderness for even one day. "What is the status of their military capabilities?" she asked. "Very basic, Captain," replied Ketham. "They have weapons that shoot small metal pieces, some explosive devices, but nothing that could threaten our ship. Our shields could stop anything they have." Dr. Zelnoth was studying her own data. "Captain, I recommend we add this species to our catalog of developing worlds. They show no signs of being able to advance much further. Their technology is too simple. Their bodies are too weak. They cannot even survive in their own planet's extreme environments without artificial help." "Wait," said Captain Vextai. "That gives me an idea for our research." The other aliens looked at her with curiosity. "We have been looking for new data on species survival capabilities. These humans could provide us with interesting information. We could observe how they handle extreme survival situations. It would help us understand why some species advance and others do not." Dr. Zelnoth nodded slowly. "That is a good idea, Captain. We could learn much about primitive survival methods. It might help us understand our own evolution better." "But Captain," said Ketham, "these creatures are so weak. Any real survival test would likely kill them quickly. We might not learn very much." Captain Vextai smiled, showing her sharp white teeth. "That is exactly why this will be interesting. We can document how quickly primitive species fail when faced with real challenges. It will be valuable data for the Galactic Science Council." She turned to her crew. "Scan the planet for humans in extreme environments. Find one that is isolated and facing difficult conditions. We will observe and record everything." The crew began working at their stations. Lights blinked and computers hummed as they searched the planet below. The ship's advanced sensors could see through clouds and darkness. They could detect heat signatures and life signs from thousands of miles away. "Captain, I have found something," announced the navigation officer. "There is a human in a very cold region of their planet. The temperature is far below what their species normally experiences. She appears to be alone." "Perfect," said Captain Vextai. "Set course for that location. Enable our cloaking systems. These primitive creatures must not know we are watching them." The great ship turned silently and began moving toward Earth. As it got closer, The aliens could see more details of the human they had chosen to observe. She was wearing thick clothing and carrying a small pack on her back. Snow was falling heavily around her. "The conditions look very harsh," observed Dr. Zelnoth. "Wind speed is very high. Temperature is dropping rapidly. The human's body will not be able to handle this for long." "How long do you estimate she will survive?" asked Captain Vextai. Dr. Zelnoth checked her instruments. "Based on our data about human physiology and the environmental conditions, I estimate no more than 6 hours. Possibly less if the weather gets worse." Ketham was monitoring the human's vital signs using the ship's scanners. Her heart rate is elevated but stable. Body temperature is still normal, but she is losing heat quickly. "Begin recording everything," ordered Captain Vextai. "I want complete documentation of this primitive creature's final hours. This will make an excellent example of why species like this cannot advance to join the galactic community." The aliens settled in to watch what they expected to be a short and tragic display of primitive failure. Their advanced computers calculated the humans' chances of survival as nearly 0. Their scientific instruments showed that the environment was too harsh for such a weak creature to handle. But as they watched, something unexpected began to happen. The human did not panic. She did not sit down and wait to die. Instead, she began moving with purpose through the snow and wind. "What is she doing?" asked Ketham. "She appears to be looking for something," replied Dr. Zelnoth. "But our scans show nothing useful in that area. Only rocks and dead vegetation." Captain Vextai leaned forward in her chair. "Keep watching. Let us see how long this primitive creature can delay the inevitable." None of the aliens expected that they were about to witness something that would change their understanding of what it meant to be advanced. They thought they were watching a simple death. Instead, they were about to see the true power of human survival instinct and ingenuity. Staff Sergeant Maria Rodriguez pushed through the heavy snow, her breath making white clouds in the freezing air. She had been leading a winter survival training exercise for her unit when the sudden blizzard hit. In the confusion and whiteout conditions, she had become separated from her team. Now she was alone in the Canadian wilderness with nothing but her standard military survival kit and her training. High above her, invisible to human eyes, the alien ship watched her every move. The advanced beings inside had never seen anything like this before. They were used to studying species that either had powerful technology or died quickly when faced with harsh conditions. "The human female is moving in a pattern," observed Ketham, watching his instruments. "She seems to be searching for something specific." Captain Vextai studied the readouts. "Our scans show nothing of value in this area. What could she possibly be looking for?" Maria stopped near a cluster of large rocks. She knelt down and began examining the ground carefully. The aliens watched as she picked up small pieces of wood and dry grass that were hidden under the rocks. "She is collecting debris," said Dr. Zelnoth with confusion in her voice. "Broken plant matter and dead wood. How can such worthless materials help her survive?" Maria opened her survival kit and took out a small metal object. She began striking it against a piece of steel, creating sparks that fell onto the dry grass in her hands. "The primitive is trying to create combustion," announced Ketham. "But our sensors show the moisture level in the air is too high. The organic matter is too wet. Basic physics tells us this should not work." But Maria continued working patiently. She had arranged the materials in a specific way, with the driest pieces at the center and slightly damp material around the outside. She cupped her hands around the growing sparks and blew gently on them. Suddenly, a small flame appeared in her hands. "Impossible," whispered Dr. Zelnoth. "Our computers calculated a 97% chance of failure for fire creation in these conditions." Maria carefully fed the small flame with larger pieces of wood. Soon she had a steady fire burning in a small shelter she had built using the rocks as a windbreak. The aliens watched in amazement as the human warmed her hands over the flames. "Perhaps our instruments are not working correctly," suggested Ketham. "The environmental conditions should have prevented combustion." Captain Vextai frowned. "Run a full diagnostic on all sensor systems. Check for any interference or malfunction." While the aliens questioned their own technology, Maria was not finished. She took a small metal cup from her kit and filled it with snow. She placed it near the fire to melt the snow into water. Then she added a small tablet to the water. "What is she doing now?" asked the captain. "She appears to be purifying the water," said Dr. Zelnoth slowly. "The tablet contains chemicals that kill harmful organisms. But how could such a primitive species know about water contamination?" Maria drank some of the clean water and refilled the cup with more snow. She also took out a thin silver blanket from her kit and wrapped it around her shoulders. The blanket reflected her body heat back to her while also reflecting the heat from the fire. The reflective material is actually quite clever, admitted Catham. It maximizes thermal efficiency using basic physics principles. A lucky accident, said Captain Vextai firmly. Primitive creatures sometimes stumble upon useful techniques without understanding why they work. But Maria's actions showed clear understanding and planning. She gathered more wood and arranged it in a specific pattern that would keep the fire burning for hours. She created a small shelter using branches and her backpack that would protect her from the wind while keeping her close to the fire's warmth. As the hours passed, the aliens expected to see signs of weakness and failure. Instead, Maria seemed to be getting stronger and more organized. She had created a small survival camp that was keeping her alive in conditions that should have killed her. "This is very strange," muttered Dr. Zelnoth. "The human's core body temperature has remained stable. Her heart rate has actually decreased. She appears to be comfortable." "Perhaps we should observe a different human," suggested Catham. "This one might be defective. Maybe she has some kind of genetic mutation that makes her stronger than normal humans." Captain Vextai shook her head. "No, we will continue watching this one. I want to see how long she can maintain this performance." The storm was getting worse. Snow fell heavier and the wind grew stronger. The aliens expected this to be the end of their observation. But Maria responded by improving her shelter. She built walls around her fire using logs and rocks. She created a small roof using branches and her rain gear. "She is modifying her environment instead of just enduring it," observed Dr. Zelnoth with growing interest. "This is not typical primitive behavior." "It is still just simple tool use," insisted Captain Vextai. "Even animals use tools. This proves nothing about intelligence or advancement." But privately, the captain was beginning to feel uncertain. Her people survived harsh conditions by using advanced technology. Their environmental suits could protect them from any weather. Their ships could create perfect living conditions anywhere in space. They had never needed to create fire or build shelters from natural materials. As night fell, Maria's fire continued to burn brightly. She had collected enough wood to last through the darkness. She had created a water collection system that would give her fresh drinking water from the melting snow. She had even found some edible plants growing under the snow and prepared them for cooking. "Captain," said Catham quietly, "our initial survival estimate was 6 hours. It has now been 8 hours and the human shows no signs of weakening. The conditions are becoming more severe," added Dr. Zelnoth. "Wind speed has increased by 40%. Temperature has dropped another 10 degrees. Yet the human survival indicators continue to improve." Captain Vextai stared at the viewing screen. This was not going as expected. According to everything they knew about primitive species, this human should have been dead hours ago. Instead, she was thriving in conditions that would challenge even some advanced alien species. "Continue monitoring," she ordered. "We will see how long this can last." But deep inside, Captain Vextai was beginning to wonder if they had made a mistake about humans. Maybe these creatures were not as primitive as they appeared. Maybe survival did not always require advanced technology. Maybe they had been wrong about what it meant to be advanced. 3 days had passed since the aliens began their observation. 3 days that should have ended with a frozen human corpse and another entry in their catalog of failed primitive species. Instead, Captain Vextai found herself staring at something that challenged everything she thought she knew about survival and advancement. Maria Rodriguez had not only survived the brutal Canadian winter storm, she had turned her small survival camp into something that looked almost comfortable. Where once there had been only rocks and snow, now there was an organized shelter complex with multiple areas for different purposes. "Captain, you need to see this," called Dr. Zelnoth from her science station. Her voice carried a tone of confusion that the captain had never heard before. "What is it now?" asked Captain Vextai, though she was beginning to dread the answer. "The human has constructed what appears to be a water filtration system, using only materials she found in nature. She is taking dirty snow water and making it cleaner than the drinking water on many civilized worlds." Captain Vextai moved to look at Dr. Zelnoth's screen. The image showed Maria working with layers of sand, charcoal, and cloth that she had arranged in a specific pattern. Dirty water went in the top and came out crystal clear at the bottom. "How is this possible?" asked the captain. Our own water purification systems require advanced molecular filters and energy processors. That is not all, Captain, said Keitham from his monitoring station. Watch what she is doing now. On the main screen, they could see Maria working with a long, straight piece of wood. She had attached a sharp metal point to one end and was carefully balancing it in her hands. She stood very still near a small hole in the ice, watching the water below. Suddenly, she thrust the spear downward with perfect timing and pulled up a large fish. Impossible, breathed Dr. Zelnoth. Our calculations show that catching fish with such a primitive tool requires precision timing measured in milliseconds. The human brain should not be capable of such accuracy. Maybe it was luck, suggested Ketham, but his voice sounded uncertain. They watched as Maria caught 2 more fish using the same technique. Each strike was perfectly timed and placed. There was no luck involved. This was skill that came from deep understanding of physics, biology, and animal behavior. She is cooking the fish using heated stones, observed Dr. Zelnoth. She heated the rocks in her fire and then placed them in a container made from tree bark. The stones heat the water and cook the fish without burning the container. Captain Vexatai felt a strange sensation that she had never experienced before. It took her a moment to realize it was doubt about her own understanding of intelligence and advancement. There must be an explanation, she said firmly. Perhaps humans have some kind of genetic memory that helps them survive, some instinct that guides their actions. But even as she said it, Captain Vextai knew this was not instinct. They had watched Maria make countless small decisions, each one showing careful thought and planning. She had tested different materials before choosing the best ones. She had modified her techniques when the first attempts did not work perfectly. This was conscious problem-solving of the highest level. Captain, said Ketham nervously, the human is now working with plant fibers. She appears to be making some kind of rope or cord. They watched as Maria carefully stripped long pieces of bark from certain trees. She twisted and wove the fibers together, creating strong rope that she tested by pulling on it with all her strength. That rope looks stronger than some of our basic synthetic materials, admitted Dr. Zelnoth. And she made it from dead tree bark. Maria used her new rope to create a more sophisticated shelter. She tied logs together in complex patterns that distributed weight and stress perfectly. She built a raised sleeping platform that kept her off the cold ground. She even created a system for hanging her food away from animals. The engineering principles she is using are actually quite advanced, said Dr. Zelnoth quietly. Stress distribution, load-bearing, thermal dynamics. She understands all of this without any measuring instruments or computer calculations. On the 4th day, Maria began working on something that made the aliens question everything they thought they knew about primitive species. Using her knife and some sharp stones, she started carving complex patterns into pieces of wood. What is she creating now? Asked Captain Vextai. It appears to be tools for making better tools, replied Ketham with amazement. She is crafting precision instruments that will allow her to build even more advanced equipment. They watched as Maria created measuring devices, cutting tools, and even a simple compass using a magnetized needle and a piece of cork floating in water. Each tool was carefully designed and tested before being put to use. This changes everything, whispered Dr. Zelnoth. She is not just surviving. She is advancing her technology level in real time using only natural materials. How is this possible? Demanded Captain Vextai. Our species needed thousands of years to develop such techniques. We required massive cities, specialized education systems, and advanced laboratories. Captain, said Ketham slowly, what if we have been wrong about what makes a species advanced? What if advancement is not about the tools they build, but about the mind that builds the tools? Captain Vextai stared at the screen where Maria was now creating a small furnace that could reach temperatures hot enough to work metal. She was using only clay, rocks, and careful airflow management. The aliens' own portable furnaces required complex energy systems and computer controls. Run a full analysis of everything she has built, ordered Captain Vextai. I want to know exactly how advanced these techniques really are. Hours later, Dr. Zelnoth presented her findings. Her face showed an expression of scientific excitement mixed with deep concern. Captain, the human survival camp now contains examples of over 50 different technological principles. Hydraulics, thermodynamics, metallurgy, chemistry, biology, engineering, and more. Some of the solutions she has created are more efficient than our own standard methods. But she has no computers, no power sources, no advanced materials. protested Ketham. Exactly, said Dr. Zelnoth. She has accomplished all of this using only her mind, her hands, and materials found in nature. Captain, what if humans do not need advanced technology? Because they are advanced technology. Captain Vextai felt her worldview shifting in ways that frightened her. Her people had always defined advancement by the complexity of their tools and the power of their technology. But Maria was showing them that true advancement might be the ability to create complex solutions from simple materials. Continue monitoring, she ordered, but her voice was much quieter than before. We need to understand what we are really looking at. As night fell on the fourth day, Maria sat by her fire, completely comfortable in conditions that would kill most beings in the galaxy. She had turned a hostile wilderness into a functional home using nothing but knowledge, skill, and determination. The aliens watched in silence, beginning to realize that they might be observing the most advanced species they had ever encountered. A massive storm system approached Maria's location on the seventh day of observation. The aliens watched their instruments with growing alarm, as wind speeds climbed to dangerous levels and temperatures dropped even further than before. Captain, this storm will be severe even by our standards, reported the weather analysis officer. Our computer models show destructive winds and life-threatening cold. Even our environmental suits might have trouble in these conditions. Captain Vextai looked at the approaching storm with concern, not concern for the human, though she was beginning to feel something strange about that too, but concern for their own ship. Storms this powerful could interfere with their cloaking systems and monitoring equipment. Should we retreat to a safer distance? Asked Ketham. Not yet, replied Captain Vextai. I want to see how the primitive handles this final test. Surely this will be the end of our observation. But even as she said it, Captain Vextai no longer felt confident about predicting what Maria would do. Over the past week, the human had consistently done things that should have been impossible for a primitive species. Down below, Maria was already responding to the approaching storm. She had somehow sensed the changing weather patterns without any instruments. The aliens watched as she began making rapid modifications to her shelter. How does she know the storm is coming? Asked Dr. Zelnoth. Our sensors detected the weather pattern hours ago using advanced atmospheric analysis. She has no technology at all. Watch her movements, said Ketham. She keeps looking at the clouds, feeling the wind, even smelling the air. She is using her own body as a weather detection system. Maria was reinforcing her shelter with additional logs and stones. She created multiple backup fire locations in case her main fire was extinguished. She gathered extra food and water and stored it in protected areas. Every action showed careful planning and deep understanding of what was coming. The storm will hit in approximately 2 hours, announced the weather officer. Wind speeds will reach over 100 kilometers per hour. Temperature will drop to 50 degrees. Visibility will be near zero. Our ship should retreat to orbit, suggested Ketham. We can monitor from a safe distance. Captain Vextai was about to agree when something caught her attention. Maria was building something new. Using her sophisticated rope-making techniques and engineering knowledge, she was creating a complex structure that the aliens could not immediately identify. What is she constructing now? Asked the captain. Dr. Zelnoth analyzed the structure as it took shape. It appears to be a wind-powered heating system. She is channeling the storm winds through a series of passages that will actually increase the heat output of her fire, while protecting the flames from being extinguished. That is impossible, said Ketham. Using destructive weather as a power source requires advanced engineering calculations. No primitive species could design such a system. But they watched as Maria completed her construction. She had created a wind tunnel system that would take the storm's destructive power and convert it into life-saving heat. The design was elegant in its simplicity and brilliant in its effectiveness. The storm hit with devastating force. Wind howled across the landscape with enough power to destroy buildings. Snow fell so heavily that visibility dropped to zero. The temperature plummeted to levels that would freeze most liquids solid. Inside their ship, the aliens felt their advanced systems strain against the storm's power. Warning lights flashed as their energy shields worked at maximum capacity to protect them from the weather's fury. Our power systems are being drained rapidly, reported the engineering officer. We need to retreat to orbit immediately or risk critical system failure. Captain Vextai looked at her instruments and then at the viewing screen where Maria's location was barely visible through the storm. Begin retreat to safe altitude, We will monitor from orbit. As the ship rose above the storm, the aliens expected this to be the end of their observation. No creature could survive what was happening down there. Even their advanced ship was struggling against the storm's power. But when they established orbital monitoring, their sensors showed something unbelievable. Maria's heat signature was not only stable, it was actually stronger than before. Her shelter was not just surviving the storm, it was thriving because of it. This cannot be correct, said Dr. Zelnoth, checking her instruments multiple times. Our readings show the human's environment is now warmer and more comfortable than it was before the storm arrived. The wind-powered heating system is working perfectly, confirmed Ketham with amazement in his voice. She has turned the deadliest storm in decades into her own personal power source. Captain Vextai stared at the data in shock. Her people had retreated from the storm using all their advanced technology. But the primitive human had not only stayed in place, she had used the storm to improve her situation. Captain, said Dr. Zelnoth quietly, we need to discuss what we have observed. They gathered in the ship's main conference room, where holographic displays showed everything Maria had accomplished over the past week. The evidence was overwhelming and impossible to deny. In 7 days, using only basic tools and natural materials, this human has demonstrated mastery of dozens of advanced scientific principles, began Dr. Zelnoth. She has created technology that rivals our own in efficiency and effectiveness. But how is this possible? Asked Ketham. She has no education centers, no computer systems, no industrial base. How can one individual possess such knowledge? Dr. Zelnoth brought up brain scan data they had collected. The answer is in her neural activity patterns. Watch this. The hologram showed Maria's brain function as she worked on various problems. Instead of the simple patterns they expected from a primitive mind, they saw incredibly complex neural networks processing vast amounts of information simultaneously. Her brain is performing calculations that would require our best computers, explained Dr. Zelnoth. She is analyzing thousands of variables at once. Air pressure, temperature changes, wind patterns, material properties, structural engineering requirements, and more. All without any external tools. Are you saying humans are living computers? Asked Captain Vextai. More than that, Captain. They are adaptive biological systems that can process environmental data and create solutions in real time. They do not need advanced technology because their minds are advanced technology. The implications hit them all at once. If humans could do this much with basic tools and natural materials, what could they do with actual advanced technology? What could they accomplish if they had access to galactic-level resources and knowledge? Captain, said Ketham nervously, if humans are this advanced, why do they appear so primitive to us? Dr. Zelnoth answered, because they have evolved differently than we have. We created external technology to solve our problems. They became the technology. They do not need tools to survive hostile environments because they can adapt their environment to suit their needs. Captain Vextai felt a chill that had nothing to do with the storm outside. What are you recommending, Doctor? We need to completely revise our classification of this species, Captain. These are not primitive creatures. They are apex survivors who have mastered their environment so completely that they no longer need complex tools to thrive anywhere. The storm continued to rage below them, but they could see Maria's heat signature remaining strong and stable. She had turned a deadly natural disaster into a comfortable evening by her fire. Begin preparing a full report for the Galactic Council, ordered Captain Vextai. We may have discovered something far more significant than a primitive species. What classification should I give them? Asked Dr. Zelnoth. Captain Vextai thought about everything they had witnessed. A species that could master any environment with basic tools. Beings whose minds could solve complex problems without computers. Creatures who turned deadly conditions into advantages. Class X adaptive entities, she said finally. And add a warning. Approach with extreme caution. 2 weeks had passed since the aliens first discovered Maria Rodriguez in the Canadian wilderness. What started as a simple observation of primitive species failure had become the most important scientific discovery in galactic history. Captain Vextai stood in her ready room, staring at the final reports that would change everything. Down on the planet's surface, Maria had not just survived. She had created a small civilization from nothing. Her original shelter had grown into a complex compound with multiple buildings, each designed for specific purposes. She had workshops, food storage areas, water management systems, and even what appeared to be a primitive laboratory where she experimented with local materials. "Captain, you need to see this," called Dr. Zelnoth from the bridge. "The human is doing something new." Captain Vextai returned to the bridge to find her crew gathered around the main viewing screen. Maria was standing in a clearing near her compound, arranging materials in specific patterns on the ground. "What is she creating?" asked the captain. "We believe it is a signaling system," replied Ketham. "She has arranged logs and stones in geometric patterns that would be visible from great heights. She has also created 3 large fires in a triangular formation." Dr. Zelnoth checked her instruments. The smoke from her fires contains specific chemical compounds. She has added certain plants that create distinctive smoke colors and scents. This is not random. This is a complex communication system. "Who is she trying to communicate with?" asked Captain Vextai, though she was beginning to suspect the answer. "Our long-range sensors detect movement in the human's direction," reported the navigation officer. "Multiple aircraft approaching from different directions. They appear to be searching for something. Or someone," added Dr. Zelnoth quietly. The aliens watched as human aircraft circled the area where Maria's signals were clearly visible. The lead aircraft began descending toward her location while the others maintained search patterns in the sky. "She planned this," realized Captain Vextai. "She knew exactly how to create signals that her own species would recognize and respond to. She has been in control of this situation from the beginning." The rescue aircraft landed near Maria's compound. The aliens watched as several humans in military uniforms stepped out and approached her. Instead of finding a desperate survivor barely clinging to life, they found someone who looked healthy, confident, and completely in command of her environment. "Listen to this," said Ketham, who had managed to intercept the human communication signals. "She is giving the rescue team directions to other missing humans in the area. She has been tracking their locations and monitoring their survival status while managing her own situation." The rescue team followed Maria's guidance and quickly located 3 other humans who had been lost in the same storm system. All were found alive and in good condition, guided to safety by signals and supply caches that Maria had established throughout the region. "She was not just surviving," breathed Dr. Zelnoth. "She was coordinating a rescue operation for her entire species group while appearing to be isolated and helpless." Captain Vextai watched as Maria showed the rescue team around her compound. The human rescuers were clearly amazed by what she had built. They examined her tools, tested her engineering solutions, and documented her techniques with obvious professional respect. "Those are not primitive reactions," observed Ketham. "The other humans recognize the advanced nature of what she has accomplished. This level of survival skill is respected even within their own species." "Of course it is," said Dr. Zelnoth with growing understanding, "because this is what humans do. This is normal for them. They are a species of apex survivors who treat hostile environments as temporary inconveniences." The rescue operation was completed with military efficiency. Maria's compound was documented and photographed before being carefully dismantled, with useful materials being packed for reuse. Nothing was wasted. Even her temporary civilization was managed with careful planning and resource optimization. As the aircraft prepared to leave, Maria took one last look around the area where she had spent 2 weeks. The aliens expected to see relief or exhaustion on her face. Instead, they saw satisfaction and confidence. This had not been a desperate struggle for survival. This had been a successful mission. "Final analysis, Doctor," requested Captain Vextai as the human aircraft disappeared into the distance. Dr. Zelnoth activated the holographic display that showed everything they had learned. "Captain, we have observed a species that has evolved beyond the need for external technology. Humans are biological computers capable of processing environmental data and creating solutions in real time. They do not conquer hostile environments. They become part of them. Their survival techniques are not primitive," continued Dr. Zelnoth. "They are advanced applications of physics, chemistry, biology, and engineering. What we call basic tools are actually precision instruments designed by minds that understand the fundamental principles of matter and energy." Captain Vextai studied the data with new understanding. "What does this mean for our contact protocols?" "Captain, if humans can do this much with sticks and stones, imagine what they could accomplish with access to galactic technology. They are not just survivors. They are adapters who could potentially thrive in any environment in the galaxy. Keitham brought up additional analysis. Their brains show neural flexibility that exceeds any species in our database. They can literally rewire their thinking patterns to solve new problems. They are not limited by genetic programming or instinctual responses. They are also cooperative, added Dr. Zelnoth. Maria did not just save herself. She took responsibility for the survival of other humans in the area. They worked together to ensure group survival while maintaining individual capability. Captain Vexatai felt the full weight of what they had discovered. We came here expecting to catalog another failed primitive species. Instead, we have found what might be the most adaptable and capable species in the galaxy. What are your orders, Captain? Asked Keitham. Captain Vexatai looked at the planet below, where millions of humans continued their daily lives, completely unaware that they had just revolutionized galactic understanding of intelligence and survival. Seal all observation records under maximum security classification, she ordered. Prepare a full report for the High Council with recommendations for immediate policy revision. What classification should we assign to the human species? Asked Dr. Zelnoth. Captain Vextai thought about Maria Rodriguez, who had turned a death sentence into a comfortable camping trip using nothing but knowledge, skill, and determination. She thought about a species that could adapt to any challenge and turn disadvantages into advantages. Class X adaptive entities. Status, extreme caution advised. Potential threat level, unknown. Recommended action, avoid contact until further analysis is completed. She paused and then added, note in the report that these beings treat hostile alien worlds as recreational challenges. They do not need our technology. They do not need our help. They certainly do not need our protection. And if they ever decide they need our resources, said Dr. Zelnoth quietly, there may be nothing in the galaxy that could stop them from taking what they want. The great ship turned away from Earth and began its journey back to galactic civilization. Behind them, billions of humans continued their lives, completely unaware that they had just been reclassified from primitive developing species to potential galactic superpower. In her final log entry, Captain Vextai wrote, we went looking for primitives and found apex predators. The humans are not ready to join galactic civilization. Galactic civilization may not be ready for the humans. The universe had just become a much more interesting and dangerous place.